Hey all, Fiona Phillips here from Within the Space. I wanted to just jump on and have a little bit of a discussion about self-love, and in addition to the post that I posted this morning. I feel like with the topic of self-love, there are a million layers of subtopics that we could talk about. But I particularly wanted to talk about self-affirmation. And the reason I want to talk about self-affirmations is because I've actually had several clients who are really struggling to find that self-love at a core level and yet are practicing self-affirmation. I want to say from the get-go, I've never practiced self-affirmations. It's just not something I've been called to or drawn to. And I do know a lot of people that find them effective. But I want to look at why they may not be enough on their own. And I think it comes back to what I said in the post this morning, which was that love is more than just a feeling. It is an action, right? It's doing. And I think that's the same, it's the same thing that goes for with words. Love is more than words. It's an action. Actions speak louder than words. We all know that saying. I used to not really think much of self-affirmations, but in the last couple of years since I've been practicing traditional Japanese Reiki as opposed to Western Reiki, which I practiced for several years prior to that. As part of the system of practices, and this is incorporating ancient Eastern wisdom. The system of Reiki was created well before this modern mindfulness and wellness movement that we're in at the moment. As part of that system of practices, of meditations and breath work and self-healing Reiki, there are these things that we call the 5 precepts, the 5 Reiki principles. And the idea of these precepts is that the 5 considerations that we're given are guideposts to being of the right mind. And being of the right mind means to understand that we are human, having a human experience with a human brain and an ego that goes with it. And that there is this illusion of separation. There's an illusion that there's you and there's me, that there's this and there's that there's good, there's bad. But that our true nature is connected to all things, and it's loving kindness and loving awareness. There are plenty of spiritual practices that all guide people to that same conclusion or that same awareness. And so these 5 precepts are things that we meditate on 3 times in the morning and 3 times at night. And just to break them down, I've changed them so that they're out of the negative, but the original principles are: just for today, do not anger. Just for today, do not worry. Just for today, be thankful. Just for today, work honestly and diligently in your practice. And just for today, be kind and compassionate to yourself and to others. Right? So it's clearly getting us to be in a particular mindset and a way of being. So we meditate these precepts 3 times every morning. The idea is that starts us off in the right mindset to move through our day. And we then do the same thing at the end of the day before we go to bed, and that is to allow us to reflect on how we were able to be in that way of being and where we struggled, where we were challenged. And the idea of these is that doing them every morning and every night, day in, day out, over time, it changes the subconscious. But I think more than that, it becomes so present in our awareness during the day that we're able throughout the day to begin to integrate those principles, because they're so much part of our awareness. So this is where, there are spiritual practices that deal with the energy body, and that's the hands-on part of Reiki. There are spiritual practices that deal with the mind and quietening the mind, but this is utilizing the mind to actually consciously go through the day with an awareness of these guiding principles to a way of being that is based on our true nature and therefore reduces suffering. Bringing that back to self-affirmations, I feel like if self-affirmations are the same ones are done every morning and every night, so like the precepts, but you do it every morning, every night, with the intention of being very aware of incorporating them into your way of being throughout your day, then I think the affirmations have the potential for great change within self. But they have to be actioned. And so that's where, going back to my morning post and sort of the 5 ways that we can do that, that gives us an idea of what to look at throughout our day to really be aware of where we're honouring or where we're dishonouring ourselves. And I think about it like in terms of if you're in a relationship, right, and you have a partner that continually tells you that they love you and they've got the right words, they're so good with their words, but then they go and do something that is betraying, or their general way of being is neglectful to the relationship or self-serving. Perhaps they don't like taking accountability and they're manipulative. It doesn't matter how much they tell us that they love us. When their actions are showing something completely different, then we end up not believing it, right? We absolutely end up not believing it. And it's the same with self-love. You can say your affirmations over and over and over again, but if throughout your day you're not consciously aware of where you're honouring or dishonouring yourself, I don't know that you're ever going to believe it, that you're ever really going to get there in terms of your relationship with yourself. So it needs to be actioned. I just want to end on a few things that were helpful for me in terms of moving into this place of actioning self-love. The first one that I want to quickly talk about is relationships and what we allow in relationships, because it really is a mirror being held up to us, where we really get to see where we're at in terms of our where we're at with self-love, where we are in the process of it. What we allow really shows us where we're at. So what I want to say is, I spoke before about if someone says that they love you, but then their actions are different, we're not going to believe it. But at the same time, also something that is really helpful to look at is what we do allow, and then turning that back on ourselves as if a mirror is being held up. And what I mean by that is, I spoke before, so if you're in a relationship and someone betrays you and you allow that and continue on, then ultimately we are betraying ourselves, right? That's not an act of self-love. If someone gaslights and manipulates us to avoid accountability and we allow it, we're not then being accountable to ourselves in terms of what we deserve So we're manipulating and gaslighting ourselves when we allow that. If someone is selfish and self-serving and constantly only looking out for their interests and neglecting ours, and we allow it, well, the only people that can really look out for our own interests are us, right? I mean, the buck stops with us. So if our needs are getting neglected, then ultimately, and we're allowing it, then ultimately we're neglecting ourselves and putting their needs ahead of ours. And so that's a really good way, like when someone does something that you're in relationship with, and I don't just mean an intimate partner, it could be family, it could be friends, it could be a colleague. If someone acts a particular way and you feel pain or hurt from it, the next question is, what am I allowing and why? They can be whoever they want to be, and they will, believe me, they will. They will continue to be them because that's just what they do, right? So all we can control and all we can look at and all we need to look at is what we allow in our lives and for ourselves. So that to me is a really good way at looking at when someone does something that's hurtful or painful, what do we allow? That's probably a indication to us where we're at with self-love, right? And what do we need to do to be honoring or dishonoring? But probably the thing that for me was a game changer was when an advisor suggested to me that when I'm looking at my relationship with self, to look at me as if I was a parent responsible for a child. And so what am I allowing in my life? With people, relationships, for sure. What am I allowing for myself in terms of having healthy practices when it comes to my diet, exercise, and mental health? If I was looking after a child and making decisions for them, what would be non-negotiable? And where would there be leeway? Because we need to have some balance. It doesn't all need to be hard and fast. But what would be a healthy way of implementing things in place for that child so that all of those things are covered and their well-being is really looked after in a healthy way and they're nurtured in the way they need. In terms of how we speak to ourselves, if we have done something to hurt another person, or if we've done something that we're not overly proud of and we can feel shame setting in, well, what would we do if we sat with a child that was going through that exact same thing? You know, would we tear them down? Never. Absolutely never. We wouldn't. We would treat them with loving kindness. We would treat them with compassion. And we would draw on our innate wisdom to guide them. And so if we see ourselves as our own child that we are responsible for, to step back a little bit as a parent, looking at where that child's at and what they need, it really, for me, was a game changer. Well, to sum up, affirmations, I think they're definitely worthwhile if you're called to do them. And I would invite you to do them, say them 3 times in the morning, 3 times at night before you go to bed, with the intention of actioning them and integrating them into your way of being during the day. So to being more and more aware, more and more conscious of whether your way of being is aligned with those affirmations or not, whether you're honoring or dishonoring yourself. I think putting that all in together creates a pretty powerful practice, and it's definitely worthwhile giving that a go.